There was an episode or two where Static talked to Jon Stewart.
You know, you'll be quite an asset when you join the league.
Wait a minute, did you say when I joined the league?
So,
incredible.
Thankfully, you know, I think maybe when I hit my 90s, it might be harder to do that 14-year-old voice. But so far, so good.
If you've been exposed to any sort of pop culture in the past decades and decades, whether it's film, TV, animation, whatever it is, you have definitely been touched by our next guest. Please welcome to the stage actor, comedian, screenwriter, Phil LaMarr!
Hey, thank you guys for coming out.
Oh, and thank you all for standing in line. Next time, make sure you're in alphabetical order.
Well, welcome, Phil. Hey, you are a special guest to AwesomeCon because AwesomeCon's celebrating 10 years, and you're one of the very first guests, so thank you for joining us again, and for all the subsequent years you've been here, so thank you, Phil.
No, it's always a pleasure.
Yeah.
Always a pleasure.
Well, I definitely want to start off, you know, it's in today's age with, like, YouTube and TikTok and all that, like, all the kids are getting into, you know, voice acting and all that. But, you know, back in the day, getting into voice acting, there was no path to it. You know, there was no route. There was just no sort of training to get there. So to take us back to the early, when you were young, did you, like, aspire to be, you know, a voice actor or in entertainment? Yeah. How did you get there?
Voice actor was not a term when I was young. I always like to say that before Bill Gates, the term tech billionaire was not considered a job. And the same thing with voice acting. It was just the stuff Mel Blanc does. Nobody ever said the term voice acting. In fact, I actually had a job as a voice actor before the term voice actor. You know, junior year in high school, I got hired to play one of the kids on the Mr. T cartoon. But I didn't consider that an acting job. I certainly didn't consider it the beginning of a career. This is just like, oh, this is a cool summer job. Because they had us kids record during the summer so they wouldn't have to pay for us on-set teacher.
Wow, that's crazy. So, you know, we all are a product of our upbringing. And when it comes to pursuing a life in entertainment, I mean, was that something that was supported by your family? Like, were they thinking, like, this is nuts. Like, you want to pursue this? Like, why can't you get a regular job? Like, what was that like as far as, you know, growing up?
No, I was very fortunate. My family was supportive, which was ironic because I'm the least interesting person in my family. All my cousins are funnier, prettier, more looking for attention than me. I was the little kid sitting in the corner reading books and comic books. The nerd. Which is why I love AwesomeCon. I mean, it's funny. This has been going for 10 years, and back when we did the first year of AwesomeCon was just the beginning of all of this nerdy stuff that we all love, finally moving towards the mainstream. So are there any older folks out there who remember? You know, if you were reading comics or playing D&D in, you know, junior high, you didn't say it out loud. And if you were a dude hanging out in a comic book shop, there were no women there. You know, that's why it's so wonderful to see these conventions nowadays where everybody's here.
That's right, yeah. You know? Well, over the next 3 days, this room will be filled, the whole convention center will be filled with thousands and thousands of nerds and geeks and fans. Tell me, when you were younger, what were you a fan of? What were you nerding out over? Like, what were some of the things that you were sort of geeking out over?
Well, I was mostly just like a book nerd. I had a complete collection of Sherlock Holmes, Conan the Barbarian, and tons of, you know, all of the Lord of the Rings books. Oh my God, Sean Astin's here! And, you know, tons of sci-fi books, you know, the Elric of Melnibone, you know, all sorts of things. And I would just read all of them. Actually, it was my book nerdness that made me an actor. Because in 8th grade, my school decided to do a production of a play based on a book that I loved called The Phantom Toll Booth. So I went to audition for the play, not because I wanted to be, under a spotlight, but because I love that book and I love that story, And there's this little character towards the back of the story, the senses taker, who will take your sense of purpose, your sense of duty, but he can't fight your sense of humor. And I wanted to play that part so bad. So I auditioned and didn't get it. I got cast as one of the leads instead. And then, when the first time I performed on stage, the play opened with my character, Milo's clock, which became Talk the Watchdog, standing on stage alone under a spotlight, doing a 2-minute monologue to the audience. And that flipped a switch in my head. I'm like, oh, I kind of like being in front of an audience. So thank you all for being here.
So from that point, how did you make that kind of leap into pursuing it professionally?
Well,
what was the next step?
I did plays in high school, and for me, being an actor on stage or running the lights, it didn't matter. As long as I was part of the production, it was fun. You got to hang out with people and spend time and make a performance that made an audience clap. And because I did plays, a friend of my mother's who worked for NBC got me the job on the Mr. T cartoons. Like, oh, you act? I'm like, oh, yeah, I do. And so, I played Woody. And then I kept doing plays in college. And, it was weird. I was in college with some amazing performers who've now gone on to... I did plays in college with Josh Malina from The West Wing, who's now starring on Broadway in Leopoldstadt. And I also did another play with Paul Giamatti, just like these incredible people. But then flying home to California after graduation, I thought, maybe I should try this acting thing. Either got to try it now or wait till my mid-40s having a midlife crisis and try it then.
Do you recall that moment of seeing yourself as Woody on TV when it was first airing?
Well, the funny thing was, back then, cartoons were not considered art, even by the people making them. The director would tell us, you got to end every line up. That gives it energy. I'm sorry your dog died. No, you got to end the line up. I'm sorry your dog died. Good, moving on. I'm like, what? This is bad acting. But I still enjoyed being, performing and making stories for people. So I got lucky. When I came home to LA and started pursuing acting, not everything you do as a professional actor is that good, but I had, over the years, so much good fortune in working with incredibly talented creators. It was a gift.
Well, one show that was way ahead of its time, wacky and zany and so creative, was MADtv. And tell us about your experiences with MADtv, how you got that part, and maybe a story or two from just that experience.
Well, that was actually, I wound up doing MADtv because, a lot of people say, oh, you're a comedian, do something funny. I'm like, no, I'm an actor. If the script is funny, then I'm funny. But in college, I started doing improv comedy with a group of people who were amazing, so funny, so intelligent. None of them went on to become actors. They're all making the world better in law and medicine, teaching. One of my improv comedy friends presented a case to the Supreme Court 4 years ago. Like, oh my God, that was even better than when you used to do an improv blues. But coming back to LA, I wanted to be part of a community doing improv, so I started taking classes at the Groundlings, which the Groundling Theater is this theater in LA that has been a launching pad for some amazing, amazing talented people. Elvira, Cassandra Peterson, who does Elvira, started there. Paul Rubens, Pee Wee Herman, he created Pee Wee Herman there. Kathy Griffin, so all these incredibly funny people. So I started doing improv, but then I started writing sketches as part of the Groundlings. And, we went through this program, you start out taking improv 1, improv 2, then they say, okay, now write up your improvs into sketches and do it again. Oh, what? I didn't come here to type. But it taught me you can write. And I went through that program with another incredibly talented person, Jennifer Coolidge. Wow. And, when you work with people that talented, apparently some of it can rub off on you. And having done sketch comedy and for a couple of years for free, when MADtv came along, I went and auditioned, and I said, yeah, I got some sketches. I got a couple of characters. I even have some impressions. Because actually, one of the sketches Jennifer and I did back in, 1990? Did a sketch where, because this was around the time that Michael Jackson had taken Brooke Shields to an award show and pretended she was his big date. So I did this sketch where I was Macho Mike. Hey, baby, why don't you make me a sandwich and then come meet me here in bed? And Jennifer played Brooke Shields.
Do you have besides Mike, was there a favorite character that you kind of, when you think back of your MADtv days, like that's kind of like your favorite character?
Well, what my favorite, I think, at the time was the character that I had established on stage at the Groundlings. Jack, the UPS guy. Oh, dude. Oh, dude. And it was just, a fun, goofy dude. And then MADtv said, hey, do that. I'm like, really? But luckily, one of my friends from the Groundlings got cast along with me in the first season of MADtv, Mary Shear. So we got to do a sketch we had done for months on stage, live on camera. And although apparently it's not on HBO Max right now.
Boo.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Boo.
Max.
Yes.
Wait, why
Max.
the hell would you take the name HBO off? That's like taking the word United out of United States.
I wonder if Peacock's going to follow suit. Anyway, let's move on. Okay,
yeah. That I could understand changing that name.
Well, I'm going to just touch on a couple of your career highlights. So a character we've loved so much on Futurama has been Hermes. And so Futurama, brilliant show. Tell me, can you tell us a little bit about how the character Hermes kind of came around and your kind of contribution to it?
Oh, sure. Well, but first, are there Futurama fans here?
Yeah!
Yes. And you guys all know the new episodes drop on Hulu on July 24th, right?
So be sure you get your subscribing done.
Well, the character Hermes was, the concept of, in the year 3000, every business must have a certified bureaucrat. That was the idea. Although originally, he was this chubby guy named Dexter, who was just, an accountant type. But a few episodes in, Matt Groening and the writers were like, this character's not really popping. There's something we can do, to add some layer of funny to him. And Matt Groening walks up to me in the hallway after, one of the recordings, like, Phil, could you do a Jamaican accent? Thank God I could. Otherwise, I might have been replaced.
So
Dexter
became Hermes. Hermes Conrad, certified bureaucrat, level grade 36.
And the writers got much funnier.
What was it like working with Matt Groening?
Oh, it was amazing. He is one of the most brilliant, but also sweetest people, you know, which is what you love when you have a boss, but especially when you have a boss that's at that level. I mean, this is the guy who created The Simpsons, you know? And when you walk in to audition for him, you're like, oh gosh. But then he's just got this warm smile, and he welcomes you in. And so, you know, sometimes when somebody has that much status, you always feel like you're just part of their machine. But Matt makes you feel like we're all part of the same team. And for the new season of Futurama, we're all back.
Amazing. Well, even on the, you know, you played all these like such, I mean, crazy, colorful characters, and then on the other spectrum, you've played even like Jon Stewart on Justice League, you know, just sort of like, tell us about that experience and what's it been like being a superhero?
Well, that was a dream come true. Because like I said, I was an old, you know, book nerd, but I was also a comic book nerd. I had tons, I have some comic books older than me. And so getting to audition for the Justice League with the guy who had created Batman, the animated series, you know, which basically brought the cool back into Batman and made animation be considered an art form for the first time. You know, like I told you, when we were doing that show in the 80s, you know, it was all being created by older dudes who wouldn't even admit at a dinner party what they did for a living. But after Batman the animated series, being part of animation was something to be proud of. Wow,
that's awesome.
And, you know, when Bruce Timm, you know, was putting together a Justice League cartoon, you know, it's like, oh, we're really bringing the whole comic book world into TVs. This is going to be amazing. Although, as an old comic book nerd, my first question for him was like, wait, Jon Stewart is the Green Lantern, not a backup Green Lantern? You know? Wow. And they said, because, you know, they were rewriting the history for the show. And, you know, the idea was, and this was before diversity and representation were buzzwords, but it was just, for the producers, you know, it's more interesting to have a group that's not just all the same. You know, like in those 60s comic books, you could only tell, you know, Hal from Barry, you know, just because of the color of their hair. But these guys were making deeper, you know, rooted stories. So they wanted more character to pull from. And that's why that Justice League and Justice League Unlimited, you watch those series, and that is a way better use of your time than watching 4 hours of some of these dang movies.
It definitely has been one of my favorite animation series has been Justice League, and so incredible.
That is very nice of you to say, Tony.
In a minute, we're going to go to questions. I think there's microphones in the stands, maybe. Oh, yeah, to the left and oh, yeah, there they are, left and right. And so in a moment, we'll go to those questions. I think we've got someone queued up here in a second.
Oh, great. And don't feel that you can only ask about some specific, you know, show or line of shows. I'm all about multiple fandoms or mixing fandoms.
That's right.
For those of you in the back who maybe can't see the shirt, it's
Pulp Fiction.
It's Pulp Fiction meets Star Wars.
Well, hey, speaking of Pulp Fiction, I mean, come on, like, you're not just voice actor, you're, you know, in Pulp Fiction, you got to tell us about that iconic scene. John Travolta, Samuel L. Jackson, front seat of a car, just, you know, jabbering away, and then shockingly your face gets blown off, and so by John Travolta. But I gotta imagine, what was that experience like, and how did that all happen, and tell us about that.
It was a wonder. It was, especially to be starting your career early on, working with an actor who had been so iconic in your childhood. I mean, I grew up watching John Travolta, and then all of a sudden, I'm standing here rehearsing with him. I remember, because one of the amazing things that makes Quentin's movies so good, he had us rehearse the movie before shooting. So he knew what everybody was bringing to it, and everybody knew what everybody else was doing. I remember walking into rehearsal, and John Travolta turns and looks at me. He's like, "Oh man, this is the kid I'm gonna kill? The audience is gonna hate me." And that, in fact, led to Quentin changing the script. Because originally, John was supposed to shoot me twice. Once in accident. Oh, spoilers for those of you who haven't seen Pulp Fiction in the last 23 years. The gun is supposed to go off accidentally, shoot me in the throat. And I was sitting there gurgling while they banter back and forth. "Oh, what are we gonna do? All right, just put him out of his misery. I'm gonna hit the horn at 3. 1, 2, 3, boom." And he's supposed to shoot me on purpose to put me out of my misery. But John and Quentin thought about it and go, "Ooh, yeah, if a gun goes off on accident, that's one thing. But if Vincent shoots this little guy in the back on purpose, that's gonna be a negative impact, and people aren't gonna enjoy his dancing as much."
All right, let's go to our questions here. Okay, After, all right, tell us your name and tell us first time or many times to AwesomeCon. Go ahead.
My name is Austin, and many time returning to AwesomeCon.
Well, we'll call it Austin Con.
Anyway, I actually have 2 questions. One for me and a buddy who sadly couldn't make it. First off, just your voice is incredibly versatile. I mean, from someone as stoic to Samurai Jack to someone as energetic as Static Shock to well, freaking Hermes Conrad and Ollie Williams. Speaking of which, and now Ollie Williams with the weather. Ollie?
It's raining sideways.
Had to say it. So I have to ask, are there any specific characters that came more naturally than others, and others that came not so easily?
No, I mean, the thing, because it's funny, people always ask, like, well, you work in cartoons, you work on movies, TV shows, which is your favorite? And it's not about the medium or the mode, it's about the quality. And I have been lucky enough to work with incredibly talented creators in all of those realms. You know, I've worked with Quentin Tarantino, Seth MacFarlane, just so many amazing people. And when somebody that good gives you material, the character comes to life immediately. I'd say perhaps the trickiest to find might have been for Metal Gear Solid 2, the character of Vamp. Vamp is one of the bosses in Metal Gear 2 and Metal Gear 4 that's very hard to beat. And I originally didn't come in to audition for that character. I begged the casting director, "Can I audition for Metal Gear 2? I loved Metal Gear 1 so much, it was such a great game." And she brought me in for like the DARPA chief or something. And then halfway through, she goes, "You know what, there's this other character we've been having trouble finding. He's this character called Vamp. He's kind of a vampire, but not really a vampire. He's sort of Eastern European, but not in any specific country, and he's maybe multisexual. We don't know." So you're throwing me more question marks than descriptions. All right. And so I just thought about vampires don't have to breathe. What would a voice sound like without air in it? And it became a voice like this. 5 today, or rather 6. You won't believe what I've found. And I saw the casting director go, I'm like, creepy is what we're looking for.
I'd say you certainly nailed it.
Hey,
And
I'll try to answer shorter.
Austin, you have to tell your friend, sorry, but you snooze, you lose. And so, thank you for the question. Let's go over here.
This question's gonna put a shock to your system.
I was wondering if you could talk about the making of the Sons of the Father episode for Static Shock, where Virgil meets Jesse's father.
And tell me your name and your how many.
Yeah, Samura, and this is a number of years now, going on like 5 or 6 years.
Awesome.
Right on. Well, it's funny. He's referring to there's an episode of Static Shock where Virgil's buddy Richie, brings him over to his house, and his dad has an issue with Virgil's race. And we did that in a Saturday morning cartoon in the early 2000s. Now, the recording of that episode was no different than any of the other episodes. Because that's what was so great about the show Static Shock, is, to me, it did to Saturday morning cartoons what Stan Lee's Marvel Comics and Spider-Man stuff did to comic books in the 60s. It brought a feeling that felt real, but at the same time, still gave you the fun of fantasy and adventure. So it wasn't like boring docudrama. It was a fantasy character who felt like one of us.
Awesome. Thank you. All right, go ahead.
Hey.
Hi, my name's Tim from Alexandria, and
Hey,
this
Tim.
is my 9th year attending AwesomeCon.
Awesome.
Nice.
And I just want to say thank you for coming to AwesomeCon. I love, all of your voices that you've done. And my question is, what's your favorite episode of Futurama and Family Guy?
Well, it's hard to pick a favorite episode of Family Guy because I usually only ever have one line. Although, no, my favorite Family Guy is probably the one where Ollie is high, because then he talks more. Let's see, Futurama, oh gosh, there are so many great episodes. For me personally, I always lean into the Fry and Leela, heartbreaking episodes. So probably that, the idle hands are the devil's plaything, where he's playing the holophoner, and plays a song for Leela. That's definitely one of my favorites.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, hi. Tell us your name.
I'm Margarita from Alexandria. And my question is, so Futurama is notorious for coming back after,
We are the zombie of television shows.
Yeah, it's the cover on TV Troy-ups for several Troy-ups. But what was it like having to come back to a character after so many years and find that character again after you put it back on the shelf and thought, oh, I'm never going to do that again?
Well, fortunately, the first time we came back, we had only been off for a couple of years. This last time was 8 or 9. But, now we've been doing that show off and on since '98. So those characters are invested very deeply in our heads. But also, again, back to the quality of the material. When, David X. Cohen and Matt Groening and that whole room of genius writers hand you a script, even though it's 20 years later, the character still feels like your character. Sometimes with these reboots, you can tell they're not connected to the original. Maybe that's why they recast or, get different writers. But with Futurama, we all feel together.
Do you feel like, as you play these characters, recurring characters for decades, do you feel like that there's a challenge physically? Like, do you feel like you feel the challenge of getting your voice back into shape, or do you feel like that it's one of those things that's like it's like a muscle, it's in shape. So can you shift those gears so quickly over a span of many years?
Well, yes. The whole value of a voice actor, initially is variety, because they get 3 voices for the price of 1. So they try to hire those of us who can do at least 3 voices. But it's definitely easier than on camera to do the same character for decades, because I don't have to dye my hair to go do Futurama. And fortunately, even back in the day, the challenge, there was an episode or 2 where Static talked to Jon Stewart.
You'll be quite an asset when you join the league.
Wait a minute. Did you say when I join the league?
So,
Incredible.
thankfully, I think maybe when I hit my 90s, it might be harder to do that 14-year-old voice. But so far, so good.
All right, excellent. All right, please go ahead.
Hey, howdy. My name is Noah. I'm from Winchester, Virginia. This is my first Awesome Con.
Right.
Woo! So, Phil LaMarr, of all the lines you've had to make Hermes say, what would you say is your favorite Hermes quote from Futurama?
Well, when the writers started writing the rhymes of, the sweet lion of Zion, I was like, wow, where did that come from? But then we did the show for so many years, there was one episode where they wrote, sweet something of someplace. I'm like, oh my God, the Harvard guys finally ran out of ideas. So that one made me laugh the most. But they haven't run out of ideas. The new episode's coming up, you'll see more.
By the way, I'm really happy for your work for Static Shock. I've never seen it, but I've heard the episode Jimmy, which I've seen reviews for it, really resonated with me. I've been bullied in the past, so thanks for your work. By the way, one last question. Considering you worked on Futurama, this would probably be a quick question. What's your opinion on the Orville? Seth MacFarlane's like Star Trek.
It's a TV show.
Oh, I know Orville. Yeah. No, I mean, I know Seth. And actually, my friend who's on the show plays a character named LaMarr.
That's true.
And every time I see Seth, I'm like, hey, Seth, where's my Orville check? No. No. Everything Seth does is incredible. I mean, you meet a lot of people in Hollywood who get, a lot of, smoke up their runner. But Seth was one of the handful of people I say is worth what he gets paid. I mean, a person who can draw, write, sing, and voice all of those characters at that level, yeah, he's a genius.
All right.
Thank you so much. Hi.
Hello. Hey, Phil. I'm Bob.
Hey, Bob.
Saw you at the first Awesome Con. Happy you're back. My question is, are you still working with the black version? And do you think you'll be back in D.C. anytime soon? I loved you at the Kennedy Center.
Oh, you got to see that. Thank you, Bob. Thank you for coming, Bob. Bob is referring to a improv group that I still perform with monthly. We're definitely doing a show on Juneteenth. This came from my improv background and from the Groundlings. This is a group, we perform at the Groundlings Theater in Los Angeles once a month, and we started this even before AwesomeCon. In 2010, my friend Jordan Black, who is a writer and also an actor, he was on Community, and he got together a group. It's an all-African-American group of performers, and we take a suggestion from the audience of a classic or iconic movie, and then we improv the black version of it. Like when they yelled out Jaws, we improved a movie called Catfish. When we did the black version of Silence of the Lambs, it was called Why You Eating People? And recently, we have started going on tours. And what was it, in February? No, it was in February, yes?
I have no idea. You did Mommy Dearest.
No, I'm sorry, it was in October. We did a show at the Kennedy Center. That's right, and yeah, when the audience yelled out Mommy Dearest, we did Mama Come On!
Thank you. Hi, go ahead.
Hey.
I was wondering, what was it like working with Dwayne McDuffy on Static Shock and Justice League?
It was a pleasure and a gift for me to work with a literal genius. He's referring to Dwayne McDuffy, who was one of the co-creators of Milestone Comics, and which is where the Static character came from. And Dwayne was also one of the writers, producers on Static Shock and Justice League, and he was incredible. He was, I mean, when I say, these people are genius, Dwayne was literally a genius. I mean, he got into MIT in physics at 16. And working with him on Justice League was great because we had our sort of, comic nerd bond. When we'd be reading through a script and there was some like little Silver Age Easter egg reference in a script, I would look up at Dwayne and go, and he'd be like, so that was a joy. And also just a terrible, terrible loss. Dwayne died early of a heart condition at age 50. And the fact that we don't have more of his creations, that's why our world isn't as great a place as it could be.
Thank you for your question. All right.
Sorry,
Phil.
I don't answer questions quickly.
Phil, we have, looks like, less than 4 minutes left. You think we can get through these people?
Yikes.
It's going to be quick. All right, here we go. Go.
All right. My name's Jeff from Ashburn, coming here, I don't know how many years, but anyways, my question is, let's say Jon Stewart, your Green Lantern character, had that one ring to rule them all. What would happen?
Well, I don't believe there is any one ring, because you have a power ring. And the only limitation is your personal willpower.
Please go ahead.
Hi, my name is Mango, and I've been coming to AwesomeCon since 2015.
Sweet.
My question is, how did it feel to come back to Samurai Jack after so many years?
Oh, yes. For anybody who doesn't know, Samurai Jack got canceled in 2004, and 13 years later, we came back with a final 5th season that finished the story. It felt great, because we got to finish the story. And for me, if anything's in the theme song, you gotta do it. Got to get back to the past. He had to get back. And Gendy did an incredible job bringing the series back. It felt as if the show had been going for that 14 years. This is what it would have evolved into. And if anybody hasn't seen it, watch it. It will make you cry.
Thank you.
All right. Hello.
Hi, I'm Maya. This is my second time at AwesomeCon.
Cool dress.
Thank you. I also wanted to ask about Samurai Jack because that was really nostalgic for me and my cousins and my brother growing up because there weren't a lot of Asian main characters in cartoons and stuff. So I just wanted to ask what your favorite episode was. I think mine was probably Aku's Fairy Tales.
Yeah, that was fun. I think I played one of the little kids in that one too.
Yeah.
There's also the rave episode. That one's pretty fun. I remember wait, you're putting a rave in a cartoon, Gendy? That's hilarious. Although my favorites have less to do with, oh gosh, they're all so great. If anybody said, I don't really like cartoons, I could still recommend Samurai Jack to them. It's because this is a work of art. You're going to like this. So yeah, the rave or the one where he turns into a chicken.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right, I think this is unfortunately, I think it's our last question. Why don't you go ahead?
Hi, Ian. I've been coming for 4 years. Quick comment, just loved your work on Harvey Birdman. Great show. But my question is about your acting process. When it comes to coming back to an established character or creating a new one, if you have 2 scripts of roughly equal quality, which do you find more fun?
Well, it's always more fun to create a character than it is to have to match someone else's version of a character, because then you've got one other level. But when you're just taking the script and working with the creator to figure out the voice and put it all together with the artists, the writers, and yourself, then the voice is just in your pants.
Thank you.
All right, Phil, what do you have? What's next? What's coming up as we close down our time with you? What can we look forward to?
Oh, well, after this, heading down to the signing area. But you mean other than AwesomeCon?
Yes, yes.
Because I'm going to be at AwesomeCon all weekend. That's what's next. And hopefully I'll get to talk to Billy D. Williams and LeVar Burton in the green room.
Yeah.
But in terms of other stuff, we have new episodes of Futurama. And did I mention Mulligan? No. Oh, there's a brand new animated series on Netflix called Mulligan, created by Tina Fey and the other creators of 30 Rock, doing their first animated show, and it's hilarious. Nat Faxon, who is another fellow groundling, plays this guy, Matty Mulligan, who, when the Earth is invaded by this, group of evil aliens, this, goofy Boston guy manages to blow up the mothership by throwing like a Boston Red Sox. He throws a hand grenade. And then he winds up becoming the president of what's left of our planet. And on that one, I play
Axatrax, the leader of the alien invasion force,
who's now a prisoner.
All right, hey, if you don't mind, let's take a picture with your fans, and we'll post this up on Twitter under Crazy for Comic-Con. There you go. Hey, let's welcome and thanks Phil LaMarr. Thank you for being here.
Thank you guys for coming out.
Thank you for 10 years of AwesomeCon. Thank you. Go check him out on the showroom floor.
Good news, everyone. You can subscribe to Fandom Spotlite for free. What? That doesn't seem right. And this says have fun and follow your fandom, whatever that means.